Good morning, comrades. Why low budgets, and what does it mean? I think most of us here have probably a very civilized understanding about cinema, which means that cinema goes from what we made on our holiday right all the way to Ridley Scott. First of all, I want you to relax about money, okay? Of course, low budget sounds like it's about money, doesn't it? It's actually about culture, it's about practice, it's about your relationship with your practice, and it's about your understanding of manufacture. In London, a low-budget film, officially, this is what bureaucrats make up, because it's about how much money they'll give you, bureaucrats and broadcasting people. In London, a low-budget film is under 1 million or under 1.5 million. In Paris, maybe it's under 2 million euros, maybe, but it's not clear. In Denmark, it's under 1 million euros. In Budapest, it's under 400,000 euros or 30, 40, 50 million forints. In New York, it's for a studio classics division with a crazy name, like for instance, there's one called Warner Independent, which is an internally contradictory idea. Classics division will make a film for $5 million and call it low budget. An independent who's just got credit cards will make a film which will be called a low budget film for under $100,000, like $60,000. The way of having a relationship with the money, if you want to have a relationship with the money, is that when you make a low budget film, anywhere you are, generally the minimum price will be between 8 and 10 times what you earn if you're working in a year. So if it's about using the cash limitations to understand what your priorities are and being in a group of filmmakers, the slogan is the budget is the aesthetic. There's only one thing which is really expensive, and that's not knowing which film you're going to make. The problem with making a low-budget film is that you're in a marketplace where people depend on you making a good film and understanding cinema. So the cheaper your film, the better you've got to be. One of the interesting things that Roger Corman taught me was how to know who your models are in terms of practice and understand them in the broadest way. And he said, well, there are 3 kinds of low-budget film. There's schlock horror, punk sleaze, and high art. Okay? So schlock horror is obviously about blood and about wigs and gowns, and it's about Edgar Allan Poe and all of that part of Roger Corman's work, all of those kind of B pictures. Like he would find one set and he would make a Dracula film and a Frankenstein film back to back in 3 weeks on the same set. Now, punk sleaze is about urban lifestyles. It's about slacker students. It's about disgusting things that come out of the drains. It's contemporary life in the city in a way which is very sharp. Then that naturally drains into this third area called high art, which he calls high art. And of course we know what high art is because that's the cinema which we talk about most of the time. We must start from the original point of view where we understand very clearly that if you produce films in the US in groups of 10 or 12 or 15, and if you produce films in Mumbai in groups of 30 or 40, and if you produce action movies for quite low budgets in groups of 5 or 7 or 10 in Hong Kong, then as a producer, enough people will buy tickets that you can make another film. Okay, that's called a return on investment. Okay? In every country in the rest of the world, since the Second World War, governments decided, I know, let's have a film industry. Because there's no reason to have a film industry in the original market, in the money market. So we have to create a second market. So a film without a package has to be given a package. So what is the package? 15, 20 years ago in Spain, there's a guy called Pedro Motovar, and he wants to make a sex comedy which is perverse about these urban people who are very extraordinary, and one of them wants to be a matador. Okay, what should we do? Okay, well, we want to have Spanish cinema. We want Spanish cinema to be urban. We want it to be post-Franco. We want to create a new audience. So our value is we've got a piece of paper in our pocket that says we must find somebody who is going to create a new Spanish cinema, and that will have value for us in our market. And our market is a national market. It's a public market. So I always say to people, look, it's not as though you're ever outside the market. There's no place outside the market, because if there's somebody, if you're in a small country and there's one person and that person worked for 20 years as a dramaturg in the theatre and then in television and everybody knows them and they have all the film money. Now the market is what's their taste. It's the same as if you want to make your first short film and your auntie has got some money but your family hasn't got any money. You have to go to the countryside and see your auntie and see what kind of films your auntie likes. Okay? So everything is a market. So everyone is outside the system, but the way you're outside the system means that all these things are connected. Your movie, people are going to go to it because they think there's some weird sex going on in it. I mean, the reason that art movies, the reason that Fellini films were distributed in America in the 1960s was something called the college circuit. And the college circuit was Americans who thought that Marcello Mastroianni was going to do something pretty weird in a sex scene with Sophia Loren, and he was going to hang around looking sophisticated, and then next week you'd see all the guys in the college circuit were going to wear a tuxedo and kind of wander around looking like Marcello Mastroianni, because European films had things in them which weren't in American films. They were less respectable, they were more provocative, they had different content. There are all kinds of things that are low budget, but until you get to the point where you allow yourself to say, because I have nothing, I know more, then you don't begin to prepare a film. But to decide that you need this glorious Ayn Rand style romantic industrial creativity where you will have your idea and some other person will deal with money later on and resources and how many days and how many actors and all of those things is not it's not a problem because we shouldn't be wasteful or because we want to be ecological and all of those things. I don't really care about that. It's a problem which is that you can't actually engage with the creativity unless you see what artisanal work is. So here we make pottery from that and we make it in this way and we don't make that pottery. And it's yin and yang, and it's understanding being inside your film as a form of preparation. And it's got 5 minutes, I'm giving, or 1 minute even. So if anyone got any questions, we'll do that and I won't repeat myself. Thank you very much.
Sur les frontières, peut-être pour ajouter, un pays dont les frontières ne sont pas toutes établies jusqu'à aujourd'hui, de manière définitive avec les voisins, des problèmes justement dans le sud, le Sahara algérien, des problèmes aux frontières sud, qui posent des problèmes politiques graves, le terrorisme qui s'implante. On parle des zones grises.
Yeah, so there's kind of these grey zones where the terrorists are implanted along the frontiers of Tunisia.
Une dernière chose sur les frontières peut-être, le rôle qui est assigné aujourd'hui à l'Afrique du Nord de constituer le premier cordon sanitaire pour l'Europe.
So North Africa's been taken as a kind of cordon sanitaire between Africa and Europe.
Let's just talk a bit about the conditions of production. Just very essential thing. How many days did it take to shoot this film?
8 weeks from February to March, and we reshoot in June for 2 weeks. But we start the editing between the two shooting.
And how many professional actors? There are some shepherds and there's some professional actors.
One professional actor. We just made on a fait beaucoup de repérage vers l'est, l'ouest.
So they just went and looked at loads of different locations in the west and the south.
Mais il n'y avait pas d'histoire, il n'y avait rien du tout.
But there was no story at that point.
Juste l'idée d'extension de la carte à l'échelle du pays.
So just this idea of extending the map. And so then what appeared on the surface of the country was this kind of linked line.
Et donc le film, le script ensuite a consisté à mettre en forme cette idée de ligne qui traversait le pays, qui fabriquait depuis des siècles peut-être ce pays.
And so then the script was just putting together these lines that maybe through centuries across the country.
C'est ça faire des expériences. On devrait pouvoir faire du cinéma comme ça, comme d'autres pays.
So it's like you should be able to do filmmaking like when people paint. You should be able to give yourself the kind of time to experiment.
Avec des remords aussi.
Des remords, on repasse dessus, on efface tout et on recommence.
And basically then you go over what you've done and you do it again and like a painter.
I mean, it's a film and it's like in festivals.
C'est pas
so it's money that they can gain from
Au moins avec les moyens tournage prochain film.
The next.
Okay, it's going to earn enough money for them to shoot the next film.
Donc c'est essentiel pour nous de trouver la formule qui permette non pas de faire un film, mais des films. Ou alors le prochain.
What they're looking for is a kind of formula or a way that's going to enable them to be sustainable in their making their film in the way that they're making them. So if you make a film, if it has enough sales to make the next one.
C'est ça, c'est pas de s'enrichir et d'ailleurs.
It's not necessary to get rich.
Mais très concrètement, Inland, the shooting we made the shooting with the one with one rather than you.
So I mean, Inland was made completely off the back of the money that they got from.
With the prices and the TV and the French release, and so on a dégagé suffisamment d'argent pour remettre dans le prochain. Et j'espère qu'avec Inland, on va, avec des prix, avec une vente télé ici, la distribution française, dégager 50, 100 000 euros.
So they need 50, 100,000 euros, and then they can do the next one. So they're very poor, but they earn really good rights.
It's important because
in 10 years maybe.
In 10 years, it's on the mantelpiece. It's, you know, your grandchildren have the right to it. You know. It's something to think about, having rights.
Bien sûr, bien sûr.
Because in Northern Europe, everyone's desperate to get a lot of money to make a film, but they own nothing.
No, because that's why we risk something. Because okay, we are not paid to make the movie, but when the Algerian part is paid, it's for nothing. So the only thing we can have is the rights for des années à venir en fait.
So Shifty, yes, yeah.
Mais l'obsession que nous on a, l'obsession vraiment qu'on a, j'ai parlé tout à l'heure de formule, il faut que l'argent du précédent film de Inland permette de démarrer un prochain tournage. C'est de ne pas être prisonnier du financement public de celui-ci ou de celui-là.
I mean, their complete obsession, having done these films, is not to be prisoner of these kind of public funding. They want to be autonomous in their money.
On ne veut pas les otages de la banque.
They don't want to be hostages to the banks, to the...
Donc, et pas plus qu'on va être otage du ministère public de la culture de tel ou tel pays.
And they don't want to be hostages to the Minister of Culture from whichever country.
We started making a few music videos, and Iran said he'd written this script called Shifty. And it was based on a guy who he grew up with in his hometown of Harlow, which is in Essex, just north of London. And this guy was very charismatic, intelligent, funny, smart guy. And Iran went back to Harlow when he had been working in the film industry for a bit, just to see his parents. And he bumped into Shifty. And they said, you know, Shifty's like, what are you up to? And he said, oh, I'm working as a runner in the film industry. What are you up to? And he said, oh, I'm a crack cocaine dealer. So, okay, that's quite interesting. Maybe can I follow you around for a week or two and just kind of I was thinking of writing something about that.
Well, I mean, Microwave is very led by the point of the scheme is that it's transitioning people from short form into feature length who are stuck often in shorts. Not many people get funded a year to make their debut, and often in the UK debuts are very expensive. They're often £1 million, £1.5 million. And a lot of people don't necessarily go out and do it themselves and are entrepreneurial in ways of other places are like American indie cinema, etc., where you gather what you can and you shoot a film with that money. And that was very compelling about these guys. They really, Iran knew exactly what he wanted to do, he knew who it was for, he knew who the audience was, you guys were a very strong team. What was compelling was obviously he had a good talent as a screenwriter, and in person Iran is a very strong character who is very, very clear about what he wanted to make, but equally he's a very good team player and collaborator, isn't he? And actually he does stand out for sure. He knew exactly what film he wanted to make, and that stood out for us.
And we realised that actually what we needed to do was set a date and say, right, that's when we're shooting it, and suddenly everyone kind of focuses. That's when the script needs to be ready. So if there's problems, move quickly and get it done. So we set the date of whatever it was, the 1st of August or something, and it was originally going to be May, and then it pushed, to June, and it was just, we started to feel, hold on, maybe this is never going to happen, like some films never do. So we literally set a date, and that led everything else.
So then you had to schedule to shoot in how many days?
18 days, so it's 3 6-day weeks.
How many minutes of screen time did you need to achieve in each day? About 5 minutes?
Something like that, yeah. Every single location has to be within 5 minutes of the studios. So even if the director said, "No, I have to have that location," it's like, no, these are the rules. And so we reckon quite heavily in Brotherhood. And Brotherhood's a place where if you look that way, it looks just like Harlow, and if you look that way, it looks like EastEnders or something. You want to take the wall out to get the camera in, so it's quite difficult. And we measured it all, and then in the rehearsal space, so a room a bit like this, we got gaffer tape, and we exactly did the exact measurements of that kitchen down to where the tables and chairs were. So that when we rehearsed with the actors, they knew, they weren't rehearsing in a big space, and an actor will always just fill the space. When they know they've got this much space, they have to figure it out right there. So every single location that we arrived at, the director of photography and his camera team and the electricians knew exactly where every light went, where the camera would be positioned, and the actors knew exactly what their performance was within that space. So we were incredibly efficient at coming into the space, shooting just the shots that we needed and getting out. And every actor got paid, well, everyone in the whole film got paid the same, which was £58.50 a day.
£58.50 per day?
Which is national minimum wage.
The runner got paid £58.
The runner was 7 times.
And the director of photography got £58.50.
Which creates a great egalitarian feeling on set, because then there's no hierarchy. And it's actually really interesting, a lot of people commented on how great that was.
I guess, I don't really know. I mean, it's sort of the form of it, the form that we gave it was very conventional story form. It's a very clear 3-act structure there. And in a way, you could argue that the first half is a bit more it's a bit more kind of character-based social realism, and then by the second half, it's quite a fast-paced thriller. But essentially, there's a kind of 3-act structure there. We didn't kind of take the form of storytelling and turn it on its head and do something subversive or different. We took a very conventional form and just did it with subject matter that we knew, and with resources that we knew we could get our hands on.
Yeah, and a lot of the focus, obviously, I mean, especially for Micro, is it working commercially in its home territory. So I think actually a lot of that, think about the international market and focus sort of went by the wayside because really the focus was more on this playing in the UK. If people are not being paid, they're there for another reason. It's to do great work, but also to be respected. And it sounds obvious, but actually I think a lot of the time on bigger projects, actually people are not respected. They're just kind of, you're being paid decently, so actually you can be abused. And there's no sense of camaraderie. There's an amazing atmosphere on set. It's carried on. It's like a sort of family feel,
It would be nice to be able to take that camaraderie onto a bigger film where suddenly everyone's getting paid different amounts. But also there was the scene outside the party where Chris is sitting outside the party, drinking beer, and then Shifty arrives and they never go to the party. That was the last night of shooting and the last location, and we were about to go there and we got a call from the neighbours who said, it was like midnight on a Saturday night, and they said, if you come here, we're going to call the police. And although we had permission to be there, it was the last thing, and if that went wrong, everyone was going on to new jobs on Monday, so we had to think quite quickly. And actually I didn't mention, but one of the actually really important reasons we shot in Elstree and Borehamwood, that area, is because Ben, the other producer, grew up there. So we always knew that he just had a sense of how things worked around there. There were always a few other people he could call. And so we redid it, and the house where the party is his dad's house. His dad wasn't there at the time, but Ben had a spare set of keys. And they went in, we just turned some lights on and off and had a few runners walking back and forward in the windows, a bit like Home Alone or something. And obviously we put the music in afterwards. And in that whole street, everyone was just asleep in their houses. We rigged up lights on top of the street lamps. And we had the whole crew did that entire scene in silence. So not a single word was spoken except for what the actors were saying. And then when we finished that scene finally, normally when you wrap principal photography, everyone sort of cheers and everyone hugs and everything. So we had no idea that distributors, as me and those, all know each other and all talk all of the time. So if you show it to the wrong distributor, there's word out there that wasn't really into it, and suddenly you've got the kind of negative vibes going around this film before possibly the right distributor, inverted commas, has seen it. And we saw the kind of mistake he had made, and thank God Mir was there, because we then knew, you know, don't show it to anyone until you're ready, obviously, apart from, we did sort of test screenings, but then when it came to the actual distribution, Mir put together a screening for us, and I mean, she involved us in it, and we spoke to distributors ourselves. But we got all the distributors there in one room at the same time, and because Mir knew them, she was able to kind of big up the film a bit to them. And then we did a slightly naughty thing, which I don't think you're meant to do, which is do a cast and crew screening with the distributor screening. So we put them all together, because a cast and crew screening has such a great atmosphere about it. You're just kind of building the vibe in the room, and that worked really well. And so as a result, a few people there, they all saw each other, they all felt this good vibe, and so you built this kind of atmosphere of, you know, positive vibes as opposed to starting off with a negative thing. And had we not had Mir involved or had any structure around us, we definitely would have got that wrong.
The strategy was forget the marketplace and focus on making the best film possible, but think about who the audience is, and that informs development to a certain extent, and then take it out when it's ready.
I've been an anti-Nazi guy for a long time, since I was like 15, and I've been doing a lot of shit with those guys here, and about the Nazis. And when I, like 3 years ago, I think 4 years ago, I went into the Gay and Lesbian Festival in Denmark, and I saw a documentary regarding gay Nazis, man heroes and gay Nazis.
We still were lacking some money. And then we sent also, first they said no, and then we sent the final script to Danish radio. And then they called us in, the director and scriptwriter and me, and said, oh my God, it's a fantastic script, it's wonderful, and how interesting, and they were asking the scriptwriter, what are you doing after this, you know, because they always need some scriptwriters, you know, so they wanted to, but they said, oh, but this is fantastic, but we don't have any money in 2008. This is the final budget, more or less. We haven't made the account report or the financial report yet, but this is the final budget on it.
But when I do a movie, I love to be like in one place and just be there and get inspired of everything. And but that was one of the things I tried to do. And on our new movie, when we're sitting and working on now, it's more like that actually. But not many rooms and not many actors. Yeah, in a big swimming pool. And the scene was about those two guys, Lars and Jimmy, need to have a little contact. And we were there in like a whole fucking day and we didn't use it. That's the wrong thing with scriptwriting, I think, because you need to think about what you're doing. To do a good script, but you need to think about what the fuck, what I will do with this. Why? All the time, always ask why. I cast like, I see what can they do, not what they have done or who they are. I cast what can they do. And that was a long, I've been working with my actors for this movie like a year or 1.5 years before we gotta go on the shoot. And I love to do that because I almost never talks about the movie when with my actors. Always talk with what have you eaten yesterday? How is your life? Where did you grow up? All of those things that we started to be a family, because making movies is like a family.
What was interesting about this film, it's a film with two stories. It's a film, at the beginning it was an amateur project. Obviously we hoped for the best, but we didn't realistically think it would be in distribution. I had the script, and there were pragmatic reasons for shooting in Romania, because I knew there were certain ways we could do things on a cheaper budget and still pay people a respectable amount of money for their country. The key to making a film successfully in terms of shooting it on a very low budget is to eliminate all the people that you normally get in a crew. So makeup, set design, art direction, all those things, just we didn't really need them. And everyone was multitasking, everyone did their own makeup. I did God knows how many jobs. So we put the crews down to 11 people. The thing is, when you're down to 10 people, okay, you have more work to do, but you're much, much faster. Because you don't have to hire so many cars, you don't have to hire so much accommodation, you don't need so much food, and we could just move really, really quickly. 3 cars, and we did about, on average, 5 scenes a day. It's a combination of things, but we didn't have the money. We really wanted to have Steadicam or tracks or Panther. We couldn't afford this. We couldn't afford more than 3 lights. I kind of realised you just can't please everyone. So you have a situation, you have to leave the house at 5 in the morning, not get up at 5, but leave at 5. And you can guarantee someone's going to be lying in bed still, or eating their coffee.
I really have to say, I mean, you used the word exploited. And I would like, you said also that you shot longer days than is than is industry standard. But how much were these actors paid? How many hours were you working them? I mean, is it fair to say, somebody is still lying in bed at 5 o'clock in the morning when that person has to put his or her self on the line to deliver what you want?
But they have a choice. I mean, they know in advance. So it's up to them.
No, because they didn't know in advance, because your actress said to you, is this normal? And you said, yes, it is normal, and I was lucky that I was able to fool them. I mean...
No, but that's in advance. No, okay, so the actors were getting 15,000 francs a day, which is, I think it's 60, 70 euros.
I'm glad to know they got paid that much. But I do take exception to a director cavalierly saying, I was able to fool them.
Well, I'm quite proud of it, to be honest. I mean, I was doing amateur theatre and Super 8 films since 1992. So for well over a decade, I was making things, always knocking on doors, always getting rejected. I never had connections in my family. So after more than a decade, you just think, screw the system, screw everyone, and you've got this money, and that was a very, very liberating feeling for all of us. All the actors are from a small town in Romania, from a very small, mainly Hungarian town, and all of us felt very energized, a little bit aggressive with this, but it was a very positive feeling that we could do something and compete with the system.
Also, we should send the film also to the committee of selection for the big competition. I thought it's a joke. Peter was like, again, I think we were smiling and competition. Hello, it's for our film, which it's not going to happen. But we pushed the lab. The lab didn't want to give us the print until we pay the last money, because they are afraid maybe that I will not pay. And in Romania, Peter is English, or I don't know. It was pretty much, they didn't want to release the 35mm print until we sent the bank transfer. So it was crazy, but we got the 35mm print with English subtitles. We sent it to Berlinale. And I think on December 22nd, we got this nice letter from Berlinale people saying that they love this film and they want the film in competition. The film got this award called the Silver Bear for outstanding artistic contribution, especially for the sound design. And afterwards, the film started to be, I think from February till now, was presented in maybe 30 or something in festivals. It got the main award in Copenhagen. I truly believe after this story that if you don't have a good advocate for your film or for your project, even if it's a written script or even if it's something which is partially shot, if you don't have somebody from the industry who believes in this project or in your film, it doesn't mean that you can get through, but it would make, I think, your life and your destiny much easier. I mean, I'm pretty sure that if we wouldn't have these people who saw the film in this festival in Romania and they kept it in their minds, and so when there was some talks about what's up and coming, and maybe for some sales agents they were thinking, what films do we, what are we looking for, and somebody was mentioning Katalin Varga. oh, I saw this film, and please have a look, and it is interesting, it is something there. So I think you need to have some people who, it's not a must, it's not a rule, as Peter said, I don't think there are rules, so there are. I think it's important to not to be alone and not to be the only one who believes that you have a great story or you have a great film. You
started in the early 80s in a way that in lack of money. Back then it was state money. The whole Hungarian film industry was financed by the state, but very strict rules how much you can spend on film. The ambition was to make a film which doesn't look like a commercial film. Meaning, if you are in lack of money, don't try to reduce the story and the so-called production value, whatever it is, but try to find new ways to enrich your material with different methods, just not to be seen that it's a cheap film, it's a low-budget film. Make a low-budget film to look like not a low-budget film. It needs a very highly professional crew. Meaning, whatever environment you are in, whatever circumstances you are in, your crew must be able to make a result as if it would be Hollywood. So it's supposed to look like a very professional film.
Our original idea was to use 3 actors in the main character, because I had a lot of interviews with the original people who were the members of the family and the neighbors and the other people of the original story. But when I returned to shoot the film, they refused the participation.
We were always the way that we've been collecting stories. Now, when we use them as like for the witnesses who are telling the story or commentating the story, it's all written, except the mother. It was always a written monologue or text.
This is also a story of part of the urban folklore, because these stories are told in the pubs when people are gathering there. This type of film, this type of story they used to tell to each other.
With this movie, I wanted to get the distance of the fiction film world and the world we live in, because I felt that we are just getting far away from our world in the cinema. I mean, there are all kinds of genre movies, and even the movies which reflect on our reality, they are abstract. So I think it's time to take back cinema to the beginning when it was recording reality. When I had this little girl, I thought that I don't want to make a fiction movie, but I spent many time with her, and I saw how she lived in that. You know, this is the area, it's all parts of Eastern Europe. We have, like in Hungary, Poland, Ukraine, and Romania, there's a big industrial complexes, either mining or metal works, and they went bankrupt, and because there were a lot of people moving there, they stay there unemployed, and the victims of this whole transitory period, these changes to new industries or new ways of life, capitalism, the victims are of course the unemployed people, but they're the most.
What Yuri makes is to put together a story and to fill it up with reality. No, Csaba makes the other way around. He gets a situation and the story in the reality, and how do you dramatize it? How do you create a story of the everyday reality in a way that if you don't over-dramatize it, you don't make a melodrama, you don't put it in a genre which is taking off the extraordinarity of the everyday reality. So Shimon is the youngest generation of the filmmakers, and if you met up to now 2 filmmakers who are just choosing who are educated and trained for the real big filmmaking, film profession and film industry, just choosing the way to make a low budget because the attraction of the kind of the world and the stories which are better to make a low budget, not just because of lack of money. I don't remember what was the budget altogether.
It's in euro 40,000.
40,000. So that's what you call the micro budget film, I guess. This is a kind of filmmaking really based on the group of friends who have the same experiences, the same stories in their life, and that it's a way of life, and somehow to put it on the screen.
And we only have 3 short films before this big movie.
To put through a film like this into the cinema, into the distribution properly, it goes only once. Because for this, you have to blow it out. You have to have a proper sound. You have to have proper lighting. So at least, if you want to come out of this small box of micro budget, then you can't repeat it again and again. So it's just for a first experience. Music comes from the fans. They didn't have to pay for it. So yeah, this is what we call a partisan filmmaking.